All right. We've got a lot going on lately. Um, Another guy ran from the cops, tried fighting him, stole a taser. Now he's dead. That is regrettable. I wish that black men would stop fighting the cops. I really do. I've been arrested a few times, and when you just put your hands behind your back and let the cop arrest you, they put you in their car safe and sound, and you never have a problem. When black men figure that out, they'll stop getting shot by police. Unfortunately, the body's not even cold yet. BLM is out in force. They want you to believe that cops are just out there hunting down black men, waiting for them to um, I don't know. I don't know. It would seem if the cop was hunting a black man, he could have just drove by and shot him in the head. Obviously, he didn't. Tried to arrest him. You can watch the video for yourself. I'm not going to play it. But on that note, don't fight the cops. So, Jim came out with a show yesterday. We're going to be streaming that so that's up on YouTube and Twitter. And um, pretty soon I may actually start advertising on Twitter if Mr. Elon Musk ends up owning it. So, without further ado, I give you Mr. Jim Cooper.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Holmes Politicast. My name is Jim. I'll be your host today. On this rather gloomy, rainy Wednesday here at the Cooper household. Apologize last week I didn't do a show. I intended to, but I'm helping my parents move right now. They're moving to looking to find a smaller place to live. And I'm in the process of moving them, which is horrific. And I took a tumble. I was carrying a box and I tripped over a lawnmower that was in the garage. And didn't notice it was sticking out a little bit there. And because I had the box, I was carrying a box and I tripped. Of course, everything in the box was fine, but I scraped up my knee and my hand and bruised my face and shoulder. And I just didn't really feel much like doing it. And then I got some pain medication from the doctor, and then I was all drugged up, and it may have made it for an interesting show, but it wouldn't have been profitable to anything. I would have just went on for an hour. I probably would have done stuff like give you my social security number and tell all the family secrets and secrets of my friends, all the gossip of my friends. Yeah, it might have been entertaining, but it certainly wouldn't have been worth your time, and you wouldn't have got anything out of it unless you're trying to take my identity, which why anyone would want to be me, I don't know. There are days that I don't even want to be me. So anyway, we got a number of things to talk about in the past 2 weeks. One of the first things that I want to talk about is the Michigan governor's race. I want to tell you, so far we've got 2 weeks, or no, it's less than 2 weeks now. I don't really know when the filing deadline is, but I believe it is next week sometime. I don't know exactly the date in which you have to file. Now, of course, on the Democratic side, Governor Whitmer has already got her signatures that she needs. I think you need something like 15,000 signatures. I'm not 100% positive on the numbers, but you have to have those to be on the ballot, Michigan ballot. And the election is in August, the beginning of August, like I want to say the 6th, but don't hold me to that. And so right now we have 5 people on the Republican side that have gotten their signatures. We have Garrett Soldano. We've talked about him on our show. He was the first to get his signatures in. Then we have 4 other candidates that I really don't know a whole lot about. So I did a little bit of research, and a little bit is accurate because I didn't get a lot of information. But a gentleman named Michael Brown is also running. He is from Grand Rapids. He served in the Marine Corps from 83 to 1987. And he was a state police captain. And he was twice elected as the Berrien County Commissioner. Also on the ballot will be Ralph Rabant, and he is from Wyandotte, Michigan. He is a chaplain, or he's a pastor. He also served as a police chaplain in several different agencies, chief of police. I'm sorry. He was endorsed by the chief of police. And he did work for the Farmington Hills Police Department, Beverly Hills Police Department. I don't know if that meant he lived in Beverly Hills for a while. International Federation of Chaplains. Yeah, he is, from what I understand, a very committed Christian. I saw on Ballotpedia about him. He filled out a questionnaire. He seems very committed to his faith. I know it's easy to fake that on an application, certainly. But I have no reason to believe that he's not, based on all these different places he's worked. I mean, it seems like at some point someone would have said, I don't think you're really that much of a Christian. Another man running is Ryan Kelly. He's a real estate agent from Allendale. Couldn't find a lot of information about him. And this one's kind of interesting, only because it has a hometown feel for me, is Michael Markey. He's a Grand Haven financial advisor. So being from the Grand Haven area, that intrigued me. Not saying I want to vote for him just because he's from Grand Haven, but I'll be interested to see what he stands for. And it would be interesting if he was the governor, to have a governor from a city that I grew up in, or my formative years. So anyway, that's not everyone's going to be on the ballot, because we still have until next week. But at least 5 people have now qualified for the Republican governor's race. So I'm really looking forward to the debates. I'm such a political addict. I love the debates. And I think they're important. Now, there are some Republicans, like Herschel Walker in Georgia, he's running for the Senate. And there are a couple of others who have refused to debate. They say, I'm not going to debate. But I think it's important. I mean, I know that one of the reasons is because they claim the liberal media doesn't give them a fair chance. But, you have to play by the rules. I mean, Republicans have been elected before. There's been a liberal media for a long time. And, Reagan was elected. George Poppy Bush, H.W. Bush was elected. George W. Bush was elected. Donald Trump was elected. I mean, you can still get elected even if the media is against you. You just have to work. You have to work a little bit harder than the Democrat does, but you can still get elected. So I think it's important for the process. You need to be challenged on your ideas. You need to have somebody who questions you, so we can see what your temperament is. Do you have the right temperament? Do you get angry if somebody questions your opinions? That'll tell us a lot about who you are. It's easy to maintain, to put on a good facade if everybody around you is just patting you on the back and telling you how smart you are. But how do you handle it when somebody says you're wrong? Can you defend your position, or do you just cave? Like, I thought that was right. It tells us a lot about the candidates. The debates are important. There's an old biblical saying that iron sharpens iron. You have to be able to stand for what you believe in, and I think it's important. Debates are important, even if everyone's stacked against you. You have to be able to stand up for what you believe in. That's just part of it's part of being a man. It's part of being a politician. It's part of being a statesman. You have to be able to defend your positions against the assault, even if everyone in the room is against you. And it sharpens you, makes you a better candidate. And then, of course, in the primary, I think it's extremely important because in the primary, this is where you learn your weaknesses. If you're making a case and you can't stand up to your Republican opponents who are saying you're wrong, you need to be able to learn, oh, that's where my weakness is, because when I go up against Whitmer or I go up against a Democrat, they're going to challenge me. So this helps me learn, ooh, I need to make that case a little bit better because that really did not turn out well in that debate. When I was questioned about that, I didn't have a good answer. I just figured, hey, we're all friends here. I don't need to come up with a good answer. No, you need to come up with a good answer here because you might be challenged, and that's important when you go against Whitmer because she might be a rotten governor, but she's a good campaigner. She was really effective when she ran in her last campaign, and so you need to be prepared. If you're going to battle, you have to be prepared. And even Knights of the Round Table, they would challenge each other. They would practice, against each other. You do that in skirmishes in sports. You play against each other. You play in your own, basketball teams will play against themselves. Football teams. So they learn their own weakness. So they know where their weaknesses are. So when they go against a real opponent, they know how to, they know how to play. They know where their weaknesses are so they can shore them up. It's the same thing. The Republicans need to go to these debates so that they can be confronted by other Republicans. They can sharpen their debating tools. That way we have the strongest candidate to go against Whitmer or any Democrat, but in this case, against Whitmer. You can't just go in there saying, oh, well, I'm right and she's wrong, so I don't need to debate the Republicans. Because I already know where I stand on the issues, and I'm on the side of what's right. Well, a lot of people have been on the side of what's right and they've lost. There's a lot of reasons why they lose. So you need to go to these debates. So I really look forward to them. I really hope that they'll have them here. I don't know, the primaries in August, they'll probably be doing the debates, I would say by May. Maybe, yeah, probably by May. It depends on how many debates they have, I guess. If there's only one debate, they might do it like in July. But if they have a series of debates, they'll probably start them in May. Here, Michigan Democrats are expected to consider a resolution calling for the removal of Monroe County's George Custer monument because they say it is it hurts indigenous people's feelings. And I assume that means the Indians or American Indians, Native Americans. But it hurts their feelings. It's interesting that the Michigan Democrats are the ones complaining about this instead of like a tribal nation complaining about this. This is what really bothers me, is when people take up other people's offenses. If Native Americans have a problem with the statue, I want to hear from them. I want to hear from them why it bothers them, why they don't like seeing that monument. I'm not saying I agree with them, but I would like to hear from their own mouths why that statue is so offensive to them. Why, if they can't pass that statue without having a hysterical fit, is there an alternate route they can take to wherever they're going? Do they have to pass that statue? Is it like where their house is? Can they see the statue every time they look out the window and there's the statue? Why, I want to know, what is it about the statue that offends them? Why can't they avoid the statue? Is there a compromise? that we could have. You know, like I said, maybe you could take an alternative route to where you're going, so the people who like the statue can keep it. Maybe, you know, maybe you like to go to the park on Saturdays and the statue's there, so maybe I don't know. I'm just off the top of my head. I don't support any of these things, but maybe we could put a blanket over the statue on Saturdays so you can take your daughter there and you don't have to have a conniption fit every time you see it. I mean, I don't know. I'm just saying. You know, I'm not saying we should do that, but I'm just saying. You know, maybe we can come up with an alternative here. You know, but what bothers me is that I haven't heard a peep, not one peep, from any Native Americans at all who have said that that statue is offensive to them. Just like I didn't hear any uh, black people complaining about statues in different parts. What I hear is a bunch of white liberals who get angry on someone else's offense. Well, the statue doesn't bother me personally, they say, but I think it is hurtful and offensive to Native Americans to have to see the statue here. Well, if it's not offensive to you personally, then keep your mouth shut. Go about your business. You know, if there are actual people who are offended by this, let's talk to them. I want to talk to them. Find out what's going on. Find out what the problem is. Find out why it's hurtful to them. Find out, do they know the history of George Custer? Do they know what happened at the Battle of Little Bighorn? You know, I'd like to know, what is it that bothers them about it? But instead, all we're seeing is people who are not affected by it wanting it removed because it might, or they think it would be offensive to someone else. Well, that's the last thing I need. I don't, you know, if I'm in a room with a group of people and we're having a toast, and you know, and I'm passing out champagne because let's say I'm getting married, which would be a miracle, and I want to have a big celebration with all my friends there, and I pull out a bottle of champagne, and somebody says, I don't think you should have champagne here because it might be offensive to some people. Like, who would it offend? Well, I don't know, but it might be. Like, well, if somebody actually doesn't want that, then I would be happy to listen to them. But you don't know of anybody who's bothered by it. You're not bothered by it, you said. Why would I not have champagne because somebody might be bothered by it? You know, if somebody legitimately is, yeah, I'd like to hear them. I'd like to hear their point of view, and I'd like to talk to them. You know, again, maybe we can work something out, or maybe I'd listen to them and I'd say, oh, totally, okay, I didn't realize that. I'm sorry, I won't have any champagne. But to just tell me you can't do it because somebody might be bothered, well, that is just kind of ridiculous. You know, a nudist might be bothered because we're all wearing clothes. You know, we're not gonna have this naked because somebody might be offended that we're all wearing clothing. Um, you know, if there was an actual, well, okay, that one's a little extreme because if there's actually a nudist, I wouldn't be inviting them there anyway. But you know what I'm saying. Um, yeah, I just don't like this. Not the Senate, the state Democrats are, you know, proposing an answer to a problem that we don't even know is a problem because, as far as I know, nobody's made any complaints. Nobody's has any petitions trying to get rid of it. It's just the state Democrats. Sorry, I keep saying Senate. The state Democrats are the ones who think people might be bothered by it. It's just something that annoys me to no end. Like I said, if somebody has a problem with it, express your displeasure. We could talk about it. But let's just stop this nonsense of trying to preemptively stop people from being offended when we don't even know what they're offended about. It is interesting that the statute was put in place in 1910. There's a story in the New York Times about it, that Michigan appropriated $25,000 for the monument back in 1910, which would have been a lot of money. An interesting fun fact is that President William Howard Taft came for the dedication of it, which is interesting. I did not know that. I know a lot about presidents, but I did not know that William Howard Taft came to Michigan for the dedication in 1910. Makes me want to go see that statue even more now that I know that William Howard Taft was there for the unveiling. Roe v. Wade is in the balance right now in the Supreme Court. They're going to be making a decision about that, I assume, this term, by the end of the term, which usually ends at the end of May, beginning of June. So it should be pretty early here. And so now Governor Whitmer has filed a lawsuit, as have Planned Parenthood of Michigan, challenging Michigan's 1931 ban on abortions. Now, this was put into place back when states had the authority to decide whether or not they were going to allow abortions in their state. As we know, that is what prompted the Texas Roe v. Wade law, because a woman wanted an abortion in Texas and couldn't get one, and she took it to the Supreme Court, and they ruled that states cannot, I mean, it's a little more complicated than this, but theoretically, states cannot deny a woman a right to abortion. There's more to it, but I'll just make it simple for the sake of this discussion. So if Roe v. Wade is overturned and it went back to the states, Michigan then already has a ban on abortion that was nullified by the Supreme Court, but was not nullified by the Congress. So it's still on the books. So if Roe v. Wade is overturned, then abortion would be illegal in Michigan. So Whitmer and Planned Parenthood have filed lawsuits to take it to the Michigan Supreme Court to overturn that law. And I don't know what their argument is going to be, because the law apparently was sound, except that the federal government nullified it with Roe v. Wade. Now, if I don't know what their argument's going to be, if they say, if the Supreme Court of the United States says that law legalizing abortion is unconstitutional, then I don't know what argument they're going to make, because the law was passed. How do I word this? The law was passed constitutionally by Michigan. What argument are they going to make? That there's a constitutional protection in the U.S. Supreme Court? The Supreme Court just ruled that there's no constitutional protection. So I'm not sure what legal basis they would have to claim that it should be overturned, because it was perfectly fine when it passed. The Michigan Supreme Court didn't act on it. The Congress didn't act on it. So I don't know, because the only argument right now that keeps abortion legal in the United States is that the Supreme Court said in Roe v. Wade that women, again, this is their argument, that women have a constitutional right to an abortion. So if you take that away, then what leg do you have to stand on in court to say that it's unconstitutional? It's, because that was nullified. The court ruled that wasn't constitutional. So I don't know. I'm interested to see how this plays out, and I'm not really sure. It's hard to say, because it's been precedent for such a long time. Roe v. Wade, I mean, in my entire life, it's been, abortions have been legal in the United States. So it's hard to say whether the Michigan Supreme Court would just say, well, it's been law for so long that we're not going to enforce the Michigan ban. Just like if they ruled like Brown versus the Board of Education, saying that you can't discriminate, you can't segregate in schools and stuff. If the Supreme Court was to nullify that, I don't know if Michigan would then say we have to segregate our schools again, or they would say, well, this is already practice. We've already integrated our schools. We're not going to go back now, since it's already accepted standard practice. They may rule that abortion has been standard practice since 1973. We're not going to go back and now deny women a right to an abortion just because the Supreme Court ruled differently. I'm not sure how that'll turn out. I'd have to see what the arguments are on both sides, but it'll be an interesting case to look for. If the Supreme Court doesn't overturn Roe v. Wade, then this is all null and void. I mean, they'll drop the lawsuit. But if they do, it'll be interesting to see then what the Michigan Supreme Court does on this very issue. So, on to a couple of national issues. Let's see. This one is from CNN, not my favorite, but it's got what I need for this story. The CDC is going to extend the federal transportation mask mandate for an additional 15 days. Oh, wow. 15 days. Remember that, guys? Remember 15 days. It's only going to be for an additional 15 days. Yeah, the 15 days that it turned into 2 years. So I don't know what that means. They mean the mask mandate's going to be for an additional 2 years? Because that seems to be what the government, they say that to the Lord, 1 day is 1,000 years, and 1,000 years is a day. Well, to the government, 15 days is 2 years. The U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention plans to extend the federal transportation mask mandate for another 15 days to early May, according to a Biden administration official familiar with the decision. The announcement is expected as early as Wednesday afternoon. The mandate is now set to expire on May 3rd. The Associated Press was first to report the extension. The administration official told CNN the goal of the extension was to gather more information and understanding of the BA.2 variant of the coronavirus. Oh, good Lord. There's another variant. Quote, since early April, there have been increases in the 7-day moving average of cases in the U.S. In order to assess the potential impact the rise of cases has on severe disease, including hospitalizations and deaths, and healthcare system capacity, CDC is recommending that the Transportation Security Administration extend the security directive to enforce mask use on public transportation and transportation hubs for 15 days through May 3rd, 2022, end quote, the official said. The official, I guess he's embarrassed to announce who he is, because this isn't like some leak or something. I mean, they're announcing it, but they refuse to name who it is. Said the extension will give additional time for the CDC to learn more about BA.2 and make best informed decisions. According to the latest estimates from the CDC, BA.2 caused 86% of the new COVID cases nationwide last week. And then they go on some statistics, and I don't really care. Let me see if there's anything else interesting. No, not really. Blah, 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 science, blah, 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 following the science, blah, 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 anti-vaxxers, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, and they're concerned that anti-mask people will be unruly, and they're warning people, do not be unruly, follow the science, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, done with that one. That just is ridiculous. Another 15 days, folks. It's only 15 days. You can hold out for 15 days. And that 15 days will be another 15 days, and then another 15 days. But they only do it 15 days at a time. So it's not infringement on your rights. It's just for 15 days. Not a big deal. All right. Mr. Joe Biden is accusing Russian troops of committing genocide in Ukraine. Well, this guy just keeps escalating this Cold War that we're having with Russia. I mean, over and over, he's called Vladimir Putin a war criminal, and all kinds of things. And now he's accusing them of genocide. Crazy, crazy, crazy. This is actually from, where is it from? Oh, the BBC News, British News. Yeah, we'll have to go there. They're doing a story about Joe Biden, so they're a little less biased than the American press, but still slightly. But U.S. President Joe Biden has accused Russian forces of committing acts of genocide in Ukraine. He said Russian President Vladimir Putin was trying to, quote, wipe out the idea, end quote, of a Ukrainian identity. The U.S. has historically been reluctant to use the word genocide due to a duty to intervene if the term is used. French President Emmanuel Macron later said he was reluctant to use the word. The Kremlin called Mr. Biden's comments unacceptable. But Mr. Biden insisted on Tuesday night that evidence of genocidal acts by Russian troops was mounting. More evidence of coming out of the horrible things that the Russians have done in Ukraine, the president said, and we're going to only learn more and more about the devastation. We'll let the lawyers decide internationally whether or not it qualifies, but it sure seems that way to me. He first made the comments as part of a throwaway remark during a speech in Iowa about increasing inflation. Oh yeah, I definitely see how the Russian invasion of Ukraine has to do with increasing inflation in Iowa, but we'll go on. Telling supporters in Iowa their ability to budget should not hinge on whether a dictator declares war and commits genocide half a world away. Speaking to the public broadcaster France 2, President Macron said he would be careful with such terms today because these two peoples are brothers. I want to continue to try as much as I can to stop this war and rebuild peace. I am not sure that an escalation of rhetoric serves that cause, he added. Well, I'm not a really big fan of Emmanuel Macron, but I have to agree with him there. This does not help the situation at all by name-calling and just upsetting Putin generally. The Kremlin said Mr. Biden is attempting to distort the situation in Ukraine. This is hardly acceptable from a president of the United States, a country that has committed well-known crimes in recent times, Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov said in a conference call with reporters. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky, who has not held back from accusing Russia of genocide and crimes against humanity following the discovery of mass graves in the city of Bucha, I don't know how to pronounce it, say Bucha, said Mr. Biden's comments were true words of a true leader. Calling things by their names is essential to standing up to evil, Mr. Zelensky wrote on Twitter. Well, I mean, Zelensky needs the United States, so it's no doubt he's not going to bite the hand that feeds him. So I'm not going to criticize Zelensky. He's in the middle of a war, and he has to have the United States help. So he's got to suck up to Biden. So I'm not going to criticize him too much because, hey, if I was being attacked by Russia, I would want the United States' help. I'd say a lot of great things about Biden if I needed his help. Last month, U.S. officials rode back on comments President Biden made in Warsaw. At the end of a speech in front of the Polish government officials and dignitaries, he said to Mr. Putin, "For God's sake, this man cannot remain in power." The U.S. quickly issued a clarification amid fierce backlash from the Kremlin. The president's point was that Putin cannot be allowed to exercise power over his neighbors or the region, a Biden administration official said. He was not discussing Putin's power in Russia or regime change. Genocide is widely seen as the most serious crime against humanity and is defined under international law as a mass extermination of a particular group or people. While there is no legal consensus on whether Russia is guilty of the crime, Poland's Prime Minister Mateusz Morawiecki has described killings in the town of Bucha as acts of genocide. And last week, UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson said the attacks do not look far short of genocide. The U.S. has historically dodged using the word genocide when defining atrocities. The UN Genocide Convention, of which the U.S. is a signatory, requires countries to intervene once genocide is formally identified. Former President Bill Clinton was heavily criticized for failing to use the term, as Rwanda Hutus were killing ethnic Tutsis in 1994. His administration eventually used the diluted term acts of genocide. The Biden administration last month declared that Myanmar's military committed genocide against the Rohingya minority. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken said that it is only the 8th time in history that the U.S. had determined a genocide had taken place. So, Mr. Biden can't keep his mouth shut. He is inflaming a situation that is already horrible and tense, but he just continues running that mouth of his, claiming that Putin needs to be removed from office. He was not saying, I saw the press conference, he was not saying Russia should not invade Ukraine. He was saying that man should not remain in power. That had nothing, what does that have to do with Ukraine? That he was saying Putin should not be in charge of Russia. He was calling for regime change. He was calling for Putin to be removed. Now, I don't like Putin. I can't stand the guy. I think he's evil. But we can't go around and making inflammatory comments like this. You know, he's the same man who complained that Trump, he said, words mean things. Presidents have to be extremely careful about the words they use. When he was criticizing Trump, that Trump just ran his mouth all the time, and he was going to get us into a war because he couldn't keep his mouth shut. And now Biden continues to threaten. He said Putin committed war crimes. He said Putin needs to be removed or cannot remain in power. And now he says that Putin and the Russians are committing genocide. Those three terms are inflammatory and are going to do far more damage to this country than you can imagine. First of all, you say Putin's a war criminal, then that means he's going to be put on trial after this is all over. His only hope now is not to come up for a peace accord, because if he makes peace, he's going to be arrested for war crimes, and he will be hanged by the Hague. So at this point, he has nothing to lose. He's going to die if he loses this. So now he's going to be more committed than ever to taking over Ukraine and any other nation that he has to, in order to ensure that he stays in power and that he is not hung or will not be hanged, or however that term works. Why would you say that? Even Hitler, we did not accuse them of war crimes until after the war was over, because you don't want to put your cards out on the table and tell them what we're thinking. You know, we want to try to be able to bring a peaceable conclusion to this and bring them in alive so we can kill them, give them a fair trial, and hang them. I mean, you know. Then he says publicly that Putin needs to be removed from power. This isn't a private thing that he said to a Secretary of State and it leaked out. This was something he said publicly. Now Putin knows that Biden is gunning for him. He thinks Biden might send in the CIA. Who knows what we might do? We might foment the CIA, and our national intelligence might foment a coup attempt in Russia to remove him from power. Now it puts any Americans in danger over there in that region. It also, he might pull the Bush doctrine and say, if you're going to come after me, I'm coming after you first. So he might lobby attacks and things in America in order to destabilize our country before we can destabilize him in his country. And then number 3, he says that they are committing war crimes, which means a genocide, which I just read to you, according to the UN, if a country recognizes genocide, then the UN and the United States as a signatory has an obligation to enter a war against them to stop the genocide. So now either we've got to, because Biden opened his fat old mouth and said this, we have an obligation now to go in and go to war because genocide is being committed. We have to go in there because we have given our word as a country and said we will intervene if there is genocide. Or he's going to make this pronouncement, and we won't do anything about it, which now means that the word genocide has no meaning. That if we say there's genocide in a country, every country will be able to say, well, I don't really want to go. We made an agreement that if there is people being slaughtered, if there is a genocide going on, then we will intervene. That is a pact Americana that we made years ago, that we would never let a Holocaust occur again, and we would step in if there was a genocide, that all these nations would step in. If we don't abide by that, then the word genocide means nothing. It will be like calling a Democrat a socialist. It will be like, the Democrats calling every Republican a racist. It will be, the word has no meaning anymore because it's thrown out all the time. Anytime anything bad happens, that's a genocide. It takes away the meaning. That word is supposed to be used only for the most horrible, egregious sins against humanity, one that all the world has to come together and stop. He's now used that word. If we don't do anything now, then the word has no meaning. It would be the same if you're walking down the street and a woman cries out, I'm being raped, and you say, oh, I hear that all the time. I'm just going to keep walking. I'm not going to go to her defense. That's what they're doing. They're crying out, hey, there's genocide happening. We're being slaughtered. Yeah, we hear that every couple of years. The president's always claiming there's genocide. We don't do anything about it. It's just words. Or, like I said, we have to go in. It's one of the two. Biden has now just said that genocide does not matter. Or he says we now have to go in. Which is it going to be? We don't need to go into the war. We don't need to start a war with Russia. So I don't understand. There's no good option here. He's now put us in a position there is no good option. We either have to intervene because we have to stand against crimes against humanity that we have agreed to as a world, that we said we will not allow another Holocaust to happen. Or the word genocide has no meaning, and you can just throw it out anytime you don't like a leader. Oh, they're committing genocide over there. And just totally destroy the meaning of the word. And this is a man who said words have meanings. Presidents' words are so important. You have to have an intelligent, respected, well-meaning, calm person, who can control his emotions and control his words, not Mr. Trump, who just says anything that pops into his head and causes the world to concern. I am very, very upset about this turn of events by Biden. He has now put America in the crosshairs. I don't see any other way. We have to go to war. He's putting us on the path to war. I don't see how we're going to get away with it. We're already giving aid and comfort to Russia's enemy, not our enemy, but Russia's enemy. So we're already invested in this war. It's not going to be long before Vladimir Putin starts attacking Americans, either overseas, American bases, or he's going to attack Americans here at home, because we're already aiding and abetting his enemy. And our president has called him a war criminal, a genocidal maniac, and has said that we need to actively get rid of Putin, by whatever means necessary. I don't see any way we're going to avoid getting involved in this war at this point. And Joe Biden and the Democrats call themselves the party of peace. This is monstrosity. The Democrats have to stand up immediately against this and call for Biden. If I was a Democrat, I know, we're just going to assume for the sake of this conversation, if I was a Democrat, I would be calling for his resignation immediately, because Biden has now put us on a dangerous step. Of course, unfortunately, that'd mean Kamala Harris is president, so I don't know what I would do, actually, but this cannot stand. The Democrats, what they should do is putting a binding resolution, pass it, to say we will not accept a war with Ukraine or with Russia. The Congress actually has the power to declare war, and they have the power to prevent war. They can pass a resolution saying we will remain neutral. and we're not going to get involved. And then the president could not intervene except unless he'd be impeached. He could not. It'd be a crime for him to intervene because the United States Congress has said we're not intervening. That's what they need to do. I guess that's the best hope is for the United States Congress, but they won't do it. They're going to stand with Biden no matter what. They'll go down with the ship. You know, I mean, basically, Biden is the captain of the Titanic, and everyone on board sees the iceberg coming and saying, "Well, we're going to go ahead and hit it because the captain wants it. We're not going to tell the captain he's wrong. We'll all die, but good. But we're not going to tell the captain how to run the ship. That's what they need to do. They need to immediately pass a resolution stopping Biden from being able to go to war with Russia, unless we are attacked. I mean, obviously, if we're attacked, then we have no choice. But to censor him from being able to say anything more on behalf of the United States concerning Russia, that's what they need to do. All right. Well, anyway, on that happy note, I'm ending my show for today, and hope you all tune in next week for another exciting edition of the Holmes Politicast. I'm Jim Cooper, and I'm signing out. Bye, everyone.
Wow, it's been a while. Hi, everybody.
I turned off autoplay. I did. I don't know why it keeps on doing that. This is getting silly. All right, so that was Jim Cooper. Thanks for joining us today. Oh, excuse me. I will probably be back either today or not today. Tomorrow, Friday or Saturday, talking about Patrick Leota, whatever his name is, and his fight with the cop. Grand Valley's response to everything going on. Yeah, so we'll see you then. Bye, everybody.